Thank you, Connie. We ready? And we're rolling. Hi, everybody. I'm pretty sure that the microphone I'm talking to only goes to him. Is it? Awesome. So this month's production horror story, we start every meeting with a production horror story. This month's production horror story relates to audio and how I'm a moron. You never have exactly the right equipment on a shoot when you get there. I had a shoot where the client said, we're just going to be shooting this one person talking in front of just seated and interviewing this one person. And I said, great, perfect. And then, so I brought a lavalier. And then they said, oh yeah, and there's this other thing we want to do with 6 people sitting around a table discussing something. Okay. So the end result is, the last shot of the day is I have this wireless lavalier sitting out in the middle of this table with all these people talking into it and horrible audio of everyone, but equally horrible. So I've accomplished my goal. But that's not the horror story, sadly. The horror story is the very next day I have a shoot at John Hine. John Hine Mazda. You've all probably seen John Hine. He's an icon. My pants are binging. That's very weird. And I bet it's one of you people binging my pants. So I'm shooting shots with John Hine, and we're shooting out on the lot, and I have the wireless lavalier on him, and we're cruising along, and I'm having problems because it doesn't sound great, but my levels are perfect in my recorder. And the end result, the reason this happened is because the day before I had forgotten that in order to get decent audio from all of these different people, I had to turn the sensitivity up in the wireless microphone. And then I clipped it onto his shirt right here, and he's, John Hine, it's Where to Buy a Mazda. So he's overdriving the microphone so stinking hard, and I'm hearing overdriving, and I'm turning the volume down in the recorder, in the mixer. So I have horrible audio. So I have to go back, and there was one spot, and I'm sure if you saw it in front of you, you would go, oh yeah, I see it. I looped all of his audio. I didn't reshoot, I looped all of his audio and pieced it back in, and totally worked fine for a John Hine commercial. So that's my production horror story for this month, and why having knowledgeable people doing your audio is so important. Because otherwise it's people like me doing your audio. Welcome to the March meeting of San Diego Media Pros. We were discussing production and post-production sound, which is one of the big differentiators between good projects and bad projects. As video people, it tends to be on the back of our mind, and it should be in the front of our mind, because it certainly is in the front of the mind of the viewer. We are San Diego Media Pros, San Diego chapter of MCAI, which is Media Communications International, Media Communications Association International. Our mission is to improve, inspire, and connect media professionals in San Diego. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, all that crud. Our website is awesome. Go check it out. One of the things that we do every meeting is we have a video loop that I took down because it was blocking our screen. If you're a member, please send me, president@sdmediapros.org, a 1-minute clip of your work. We like to keep it to recent work, and I will put that on there with your name and title, and so that other people can see your work, and so that you can see other people's work and know who you're surrounded by here. If you are a member, when you are going to come to one of these meetings, please pre-register. It allows us to estimate how much food we're going to have to buy. And what room we're going to need to be in. So it helps us. One of the things that we're currently working on, well, the very next thing that's going to happen with San Diego Media Pros is our annual Media Pro Camp, which takes place in about a week and a half, April 5th, Saturday, right here. Media Pro Camp. If you ask anybody who've been to one, what they'll tell you is it's the most productive, most enlightening seminar you'll ever come to, and the reason is at the beginning of the day we write down the seminars we want to have, and we all get together in a circle and discuss and figure out solutions, and there's always somebody in the group who knows what you need to learn, and there's always somebody in the group who wants to learn what you know. And so it's the most rewarding video seminar possible. And I've had a number of people, including one guy over there, who told me that exact thing. This year we're doing a kind of a have your work looked at piece. So you can go on our website and look at the meeting announcement, and there's an email address in there for Joe Castano. Is going to be, if you want to have some of your work looked at and critiqued professionally, we will have an editor and a cinematographer and a director there so that you can show your work to them and get impressions, because so many of us work in our own silo, don't get to work with other people enough. And I know that when I work with other people, my work gets so much better than when I'm working alone. So in order to do better work, it helps to have other people see your work. One of the things that we are working on is an additional meeting. It's a meeting in addition to all the other meetings we have scheduled this year. We're working with the San Diego Premiere Pro Users Group. Eric Addison right over there is the president of that. And he called a friend of his whose name is Walter Biscardi. Walter is owns a production company in Atlanta and is a frequent contributor to Creative Cow, Creative Communities of the World. And he is a resource for video people because dude knows it, man. And so Eric contacted him and said, would you be willing to come out and speak to his group and our group basically at the same time? We're going to have a big get-together and get everybody together and have a co-meeting. Walter worked it out where a sponsor of his, crap, I forgot the name of the monitors. Flanders Monitors is going to be paying for his trip out here and making a presentation as well. And if you've seen Flanders Monitors, they rock. So that's going to be somewhere around the week of May 19th. We're still working on the date, but stay tuned and show up for that because it's going to be really valuable. Yes.
And the San Diego Premiere Producers would be happy to donate the raffle prize a year of Creative Cloud.
Did everybody hear that? San Diego Premiere Pro Users Group is donating a year of Creative Cloud from Adobe, which is awesome. Raffle that dude off. And we are working on prizes as well. Let's see. Speaking of prizes, let's raffle our first one. We have a number of prizes up here. Did everyone get a ticket? If you didn't get a ticket, raise your hand. Pardon me? I will come over there, young man.
Michael, the one that you don't have is a year of everything Infinite Skills.
We will do that last. So among the prizes that we have here are Infinite Skills. Are these all Infinite Skills? No, the two are Cakewalk by Roland, right?
Right. So if you're a PC user, you probably want the Cakewalk pieces. You could take the Pro Tools because Pro Tools is cross-platform. If you're a Mac user, either the Pro Tools or the Logic is maybe something. You probably don't want the Cakewalk.
Okay, so one of these is Learning Pro Tools 11.
Who's it by?
Infinite Skills.
And then at the bottom?
Video training DVD by, I don't recognize that name. Oh, it's Joe Godfrey. And then the second one is Learning Apple Logic Pro X, which is Pro 10. Video training DVD, author Joe Godfrey. So well done, sir.
What a coincidence.
Thank you very much for donating these. And then these guys are Sonar X2 Producer. It's a digital audio workstation for Windows, and this is
It's not a free copy, it's a 30-day trial.
it's a 30-day trial of Sonar X2 software. And then you can, if I call your number, you can take your pick of these. Okay? I missed the thing entirely. Ready? 696366. Robin Martin, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I'll take one of the Apple ones.
Learning Apple Logic. Very good. Well done. Each meeting we do tips and tricks. And I'm going to blow through these because I forgot to do them last month. And so I'm going to do 2 months worth.
Can I make a slight amendment to your Media Pro Campus right here? It's in the South Building.
Media Pro Camp is in the other building down the hill. Don't show up here. We won't be here.
South Building.
Perfect.
If you've been to Eric's
Premiere Pro.
that's where we are. Well, we're at lots of them.
I also want to give a quick thank you to Video Gear. Video Gear is a sponsor of this group. They provide us with a lot of resources like our email and our web presence and things like that. And they've also been a huge support of us with technology. And they are working on making an ongoing series of seminars to help filmmakers. One of these, I've been a part of a couple of these seminars, and they are very well thought out. They really do have the independent filmmaker in mind, the independent producer in mind. So without further ado, send your production horror stories and tips and tricks to president at SDMCA at SanDiegoMediaPros.org, SDMediaPros.org. And please do that because it's not that I'm running low on horror stories, but I am running low on tips and tricks. Creativity. Don't stop with the first great idea. The second great idea may actually be awful, but it might trigger the third idea, which is even greater. Producing. Phrases to run away from. Ready? We don't have much on this first one. Run away. When this project takes off, run away. I didn't see any tire commercials on your website, so I want you to broaden your work that you can show. So if you want to get other clients, you might want to take this project. Run away. Well, they can do it for $1,000 less. Run away. Second little producing tip. Build a hard drive into your budget so that each project has its own hard drive. That way, if there's any issues, you can hand the hard drive back to the client and run away. Directing. Directing is communicating. Speak so clearly that it can't be misinterpreted because there is no such thing as can't be misinterpreted. I spoke with an actress today who went to an acting seminar, and she learned how to do a banana turn and a clean turn and a dirty turn. And my response was, I'm sorry, I've only been directing for 25 years. I don't know what those terms are. Yes, it was pole dancing. Jargon is worthless. If you want somebody to walk in an arc, say, I want you to walk from here to there, and then turn around and speak. The clearer you are, the better. Cinematography. Do a walkthrough with the camera with no lighting, then add moments where the lighting will help, and look for moments where shadow will help more and add shadow. Block light. Equipment. Use the camera that fits the project, which means make a list of what the project requires cinematically and work backward from there. Does your project require long takes? Does it require sync sound? Does it require on-camera smooth zooms? Don't use a DSLR. Work backward from the project. Editing. Color correct on your monitor, then watch it on your TV as well and make it work for both. And I learned this one the hard way. My monitor can handle more red than my computer monitor and my video monitor that I hooked up can handle more red than my monitor in my other room, but the other monitor in the other room is how people are going to see it. So I try to watch it in my living room as well and see how it's going to Compositing. If you have a static shot of somebody talking and it goes on for a while, a tip that I learned from Mike Tao is roto brush, where you draw a line. What program is that in? After Effects. You draw a line around your subject and it will track where your subject moves from then on. And that way you can composite graphics behind your subject. And it looks really cool, and it looks so much better than a head talking there. Voiceover. Record your session at the highest quality, then send whatever the client wants. If the client wants MP3, still record it at the highest quality. You can always dumb down a file, but you can't go the other way. And here are the tips from last month. Producing. Remember that the project belongs to your client as well, and sometimes that means they have responsibilities to the project too. Let them know that when you show up at a shoot, they should be completely prepped and ready. Remind them that this will save them money. How many times have you walked into a shoot and the client is like, what? We here? What? People? What? Maybe that's just me. Writing. Write it long so that you get all the points across and out of your head, and then edit it. Get everything out of your head, get every possible thought onto that paper, and then you'll have all the components to edit down to what you want to end up with. Talent. Bring a small makeup kit. It is a small thing to have with you to keep in your trunk, but you can save the day if the makeup person is lost or stuck in traffic. I had a shoot recently where an African-American actor showed up to a shoot, and our makeup person had no makeup for an African-American actor, and she did makeup on him, and he showed up in front of the camera, and it was kind of like kabuki makeup, and that was bad. And so he had his makeup kit in the car, and we went back and redid his makeup. Compositing. To soften skin tones, here's the shot with a person's head. Okay, this is your sequence. Duplicate this shot, put it up here. Take this shot, key out the flesh tones. Make the flesh tones transparent, right? So you're seeing right through the face. Now you're seeing right through the face into this shot, which is also the same exact thing, so you won't even notice it. But if you add a little blur onto this shot, the blurred skin tones will sneak right through what's been keyed out. And so you'll be able to blur just the flesh tones, but leave all the detail intact. You can take years off a person that way. Editing. Color correction and grading are two different things. When I'm working on something, the first thing I do is color correct, meaning I get everything so that each shot has good red, green, and blue values so that it looks like normal, regular video. And then the next step I do is add a second filter to make it look the way I want it to look in terms of style or texture or substance. So I do two color correction passes, one which corrects and the other which grades. Voiceover. Water is the rosin for your bow. Warm your voice up like a singer, and on longer projects, warm up repeatedly. Budgeting, and this is true for all of us. I hate this industry because everybody underbids things, and we should all be charging more because we're valuable. Add markup to your rates. Every other business adds markup to their rates because it's acceptable for a business to charge for the costs of operating a business. A plumber adds markup. A plumber charges for every hour they work. Why can't you? Again, if you have tips or tricks or production horror stories, send them to me, president@sdmediapros.org. Today's presentation is one that I've been looking forward to for quite a while because, not only because of the speakers, but because of the subject matter. I'm horrible at audio. I'm a really good camera guy, but I'm horrible at audio. And the folks that we have speaking here tonight are very, very wonderful at their job. I've worked with Robert Mason a number of times, and Robert is a meticulous person. I'm not going to use the word perfectionist because that has a negative tone. I'm going to use the word meticulous because he is so acutely focused on doing his job accurately and perfectly that you can really mess with him. We were working on a short film together, And Robert gets into this zone where he's totally focused, and he's, focused and working on his thing. And I gather the cast and crew together and say, okay, next time we say roll sound, as soon as you see his hand hit the thing, everybody goes, and they're all like, okay, perfect, good. So we get everything lit, we've got the camera on the dolly, the actors are ready, everything. Okay, roll sound. Everybody in the room, right? And he hits, and he's like, and I have to do this in pantomime with both hands. At San Diego State. And it,
What I did?
yes, you were there for that.
What sounds familiar?
It was awesome. I've worked with Robert on a number of projects, and you can't argue with great results. And the other thing that is valuable on a crew is having people who you can work with. And Robert is exemplary in that regard too. So Robert, you're up first. Oh, that's what I want, baby. Come on up. Robert Mason, ladies and gentlemen.
Do I have to use that? I don't need that.
It feeds into the camera.
Oh, okay. All right. Good evening. Back when I first met James, I didn't need these things. Remember that? That's how far back we go. Speaking of voiceovers, do you all know James Allberger? You know you have one of the foremost voiceover coaches and audio people in the world in here tonight? This guy's really good if you want to know anything about voice in any way. And if you don't mind, I'll just shamelessly plug your book a little bit, because you just, released a fourth edition?
Comes out in September.
Fifth comes in, and it's up to how many pages? 490. When I bought it, it was like 25 or something. But they were really good pages, really. Now they're 490 really good pages. So Mike introduced me. I'm Robert Mason. I have a company in San Diego called Doghouse Productions. And I see a lot of faces around here that I know and I've worked with. It says on my card, I do location and post-production sound for film, TV, and multimedia. So if you guys are involved with film, TV, and multimedia, I either have worked with you or probably will work with you doing sound. I do production and post-production work. I'm going to talk about production. So I'm pretty good at that, but Joe's pretty good at post, so I think I'm going to let him talk about that. When Thomas called me, and I hadn't met him before, he asked me if I would come down and talk to folks and basically present a moving target for questions about sound. And we talked about that and thought about how's the best way to offer you a resource that you can really use. And I thought it would be to just kind of allow myself to do troubleshooting with you. So that's, in general, what I would like to do. I would like to provide a resource to you to talk about production sound in particular. I'll start off by talking a little bit about my background and some of the things that I've worked on, and a little bit about some of the gotchas that I've had to work through in the past. But while I'm doing that, think about things that you've encountered, challenges you've had with your production sound. That's the sound that you're gathering when you're in production, when you're actually filming, when you're shooting. Trouble you've had with mics. Things that you ended up when you got back into the edit bay that didn't sound quite the way that you wanted them to sound. And let's work backwards from there and see if we can figure out some better ways to make that work.
How about if you run down your tools of choice? Like you were telling me earlier this week, you were working on an HP shoot, and so what did it involve in terms of equipment and your challenges on that shoot?
Sure. I work on a lot of different echelons. I've worked on shoots that use DSLRs. Everybody's probably using DSLRs at one point or another, all the way up to Panavision film cameras. Let's see, was it yesterday? What day is it today? Wednesday? Today I've been editing 7:1 mix. Yesterday I did 16 stand-ups in 12 hours. The day before that I did the HP shoot up in Carlsbad. So forgive me if I mix the days up just a little bit. On that shoot, we had a crew. We had a producer and a director who came down from LA, bigwigs, and they had a whole bunch of gear. They were shooting on a Red, interestingly enough, an older Red, the Red 1. Anybody here still use a Red 1? Anybody use the? Yeah, still a pretty good camera. I was surprised they were using that because they had a Steadicam guy, and it's a heavy camera for the Steadicam. So they had that, and they also had a Blackmagic for their B cam. How many people are using? I'm just curious how many people are starting to use the Blackmagics now. That's a great camera for sound. It's an awesome camera for sound. Really? Why? Because you have to run second system. There's no choice. There's no choice. It's a great camera for sound. I mean, honestly. And in that same context, DSLRs, I kind of throw them in the same boat because they really don't record very good sound at all, even though the 5D Mark III now actually has a headphone jack, which is a plus, sort of. Okay, so we had that. We had a guy on Steadicam. We had a Red 1. We had dollies. We had key grip, 4 grips, an electric. We had a DP on set. I mean, there must have been 12 people above the line there, folks from New York and all that stuff. Probably a crew of about 25, not including the talent. And how many sound people? Me. Sometimes, yeah. No. The miking requirements in this shoot, because there were three talent. It was a narrative, and they were doing a kind of a Valley Girls, Mean Girls sort of skit narrative. So we had 3 sort of semi-clad young women, which is always a challenge for finding a place to put microphones, moving in all kinds of different directions, and then coalescing to sit at the same table and talk with each other. So since there's only me, I would chase them with a boom if I could, but they were coalescing from different places. And so I chose to use lavs on them. Now I use a brand, I don't know, has anybody heard of Sanken, the company Sanken? I use Sanken COS 11s almost exclusively. And that's what I used on this shoot. I do carry Countryman B5s, or B6s and B3s. I'm sorry, man. Has anybody used Countryman mics? Familiar with those? If you're not, you should also look those up because they're worthwhile to have in your kit. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. They're about the size of like the tip of a ballpoint pen, really, really teeny. Those particular mics are called B6s because B stands for Broadway. They're small enough to actually hide in hair, which is don't overlook putting a microphone in hair because it can save you sometime. So anyway, that was the microphone requirement there. I'll talk a little bit about how I mic them up, but the rest of my gear, I use pretty much exclusively sound devices, recorders, and mixers. We were talking about sound devices earlier tonight while we were having our pizza. Can't say enough about that company. I don't have stock in them, but I've used I bought their first recorder back in like 2004, and I still have it, and it is fantastic. I've owned 3 of them now. They build stuff really solid. If you're pros, you got to depend on your gear. There are a lot of companies that build good recording devices. You'll run across Zoom recorders, you'll run across Roland, Edirol makes some decent recorders and things like that. I would really suggest that you look on the aftermarket for some sound devices recorders. It's a great thing to have in your kit. Even if you can only afford a 2-channel recorder, they make a recorder called the 722, which will record all the way up to 192 samples per second. It's not 192K. That's way faster than anybody here needs to record. It's like it's studio quality recording, but it's a really high quality recorder, and you can get them on the aftermarket now for maybe $1,200, something like that. Maybe that still sounds like a lot of money, but think about what you spend on a camera and what you expect from your camera. You expect it to come out of the case and work for you every time and really give you good quality stuff. I would argue that it's worthwhile to buy a really decent recorder in that regard too. The other thing about a good recorder like that, or a location recorder, is it's set up for using in production. How many people use Zoom recorders? I mean, I have one. I keep it in my kit. They're fantastic recorders. The mic pre's aren't so good, but they're still really fantastic recorders. But the problem with them is that they're difficult to adjust during the shoot. I mean, it's really hard. They've got that crazy little rocker switch, and you don't know if you're supposed to turn it or push it or this, that, and the other thing. So one of the differences between something like a Sound Devices 722 and a Zoom recorder is that the Sound Devices is set up so that you can adjust it. The menus are easy to use. The buttons are easy to get to. It has knobs that are easy to get to and use. So I guess the takeaway is not so much that it has to be necessarily a Sound Devices device, but one of the things that you can do to help yourself get better location sound is make it easier for you to do that and not have to be fumbling with difficult equipment to work with. And if you're going to spend $200 or $300 on a Zoom, I would argue, if you're a pro, spend 4 times that, but for something that you can really use and keep for a while and really work for you. So I was recording to a Sound Devices 744. It's a 4-channel mixer, or a 4-channel recorder. My mixer that I use is also Sound Devices 442, so it's a 4-channel recorder or mixer. I like that mixer because it has 2 outputs I can send to the camera, and it has 4 outputs I can send directly to the recorder. That means I can record 4 isolated tracks. Now, I was set up with a boom. I had a boom on my cart, but I ended up only choosing to use the lavs because of the location and the blocking. But I had all 4 channels set up. 3 mics, 3 Electrosonics receivers going into my mixer, and my boom going into the first channel there, and then direct outs going into my recorder. So from the mixer, I would send a 2-channel mix via wireless hop to the camera. Sounds like a pretty decent little setup. It worked out pretty well. But why is it important to have those isolated tracks? Any thoughts about that? How many people record interviews where you're doing 2 shots or 2 people, multiple people, but at least 2 people who are close together talking? Anybody ever done that? And you've run those into a recorder and mixed them together, and when you got into post, you had this weird sort of warbly kind of watery sound going on? That's phasing between the 2 tracks. And it's very, very difficult to avoid that when you have multiple microphones going into the same mix. Now, if you just have 2 and you have 2 channels on your camera, you can put 1 left and 1 right, right? Now, when you get them into post, and Joe will talk about this, you can listen to one and then listen to the other and listen to the other one and listen to the other. They're not playing at the same time on top of each other, so you don't have that phasing, watery kind of sound going on. If you have more than two people on mic, which I had 3 talent that day, we were doing 3 shots, it gets very, very challenging. There are things you can do like reversing the phase on one of the microphones, and you can do some tricks like that, but inevitably you're going to end up with a couple people next to each other, and they're both going to the same mics, and you get those weird phasing things. So that's why I record the second system. I'm going to give the camera the best mix that I can. I'm going to try to foresee and avoid those phasing issues. But if I can't, I've got the backup. I'm a big fan of second system sound anyway, so that's really where I want to get my quote unquote good sound. So that was what I was using that day. I have hardwired cables, and I like to use hardwired cables out to the camera if I can. They sound better, but we were using a Steadicam, and a lot of camera folks like to be untethered anyway. They don't like to have those cables and fewer cables around the room. So more and more directors and camera folks that I work with now ask me right up off the bat, do I have a camera hop? Do I have a wireless device to send audio from my mixer to their camera? How many people have used that kind of a setup? Have you ever been in that environment? Well, I know you have because I worked with you with. Not too many. Well, if I wind back a little bit, I mean, if somebody asks me, how do you get good sound? I say, hire a professional. That's the easiest way, right? If you are hiring a professional, something you might want to ask them is if they do have a wireless hop, because it may change the way that you block and set things up. And it gives you the ability to send not only wireless microphones from your talent to the mixer or to the camera, but also from the mixer back to your camera. Now you can run around, you can do your handhelds, you can do this and that, there's no cables involved. So I was using one of those, a 2-channel wireless hop back to the camera. What else? I didn't bring Comtex for this shoot because they weren't budgeted. That's a little wireless device that goes back to the producers so they can all sit around and feel important with their headphones on, and then put them back in my cart in about 20 minutes, and they all pile up. Nobody ever listens to the Comtex. And I brought the rest of my kit with my tips and tricks. Lots of tape, special adhesives, multiple microphones, alcohol, cleaning swabs. Why would I carry alcohol besides, I mean, after the show? No, but it's not the kind you can drink, unfortunately. Absolutely. How many people have decided to hide lavalier microphones? Has everybody joined that club? Is that pretty much universal now? I still see people out there, you know. You see these interviews and somebody's got a T-shirt and it's hanging down like that, and there's a lav pointing like this. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Do you know what a microphone polar pattern is? Do you know what if I talk about this, a microphone polar pattern? That's the proximity from which you can speak into that microphone and have it listen to you. So if I have a microphone that's omnidirectional, if I walk all the way around it like this, I speak from any direction, I should be able to be picked up at the same level in that microphone. That would, if I could fly over it, it would work that way too. If I fly under it, it's omnidirectional like a big sphere. Most production microphones, lavalier microphones, are omnidirectional. Now, where that doesn't hold true, where you have to watch out, is for conferences. A lot of people who use those little Shure mics for conferences or AV stuff like that, a lot of times those are directional microphones, and they do that to keep down the feedback. That's why I'm trying to stay behind these things here. But one of the things that you can do with lavaliers, if you know, in particular Sanken COS 11s, if you know that they're omnidirectional, that frees you up to mount them. Now, I will say I've been using COS 11s for a long time, and yes, in a good environment with a critical ear, you can hear a slight difference in the directionality. But it's good enough that you cannot, you can use it in the opposite direction even. You can turn that microphone this way. If you're familiar with a Cost 11, it's like a little pointy sort of stick-looking thing. Like it's not like a bulbous-looking usual kind of mic. It's just a little thing like that and sort of narrow, maybe maybe 2 millimeters wide, something like that. A great trick with those is, I love it when I have a corporate gig and someone shows up with a tie, because it can go up behind the tie, out over the top, and tuck down inside the knot and poke out of the folds, just a little bit like that. Now, if you're not really thinking that the microphone is omnidirectional, you might say, well, that's not a good thing because the microphone's pointed away. But I've done it lots and lots of times. With a good omnidirectional microphone, you can do that. And it's a great, clean place to put a microphone in production. Okay. So, yeah, the production I did, the HP commercial, back to that. With the girls, they weren't wearing ties. Fortunately, they weren't wearing extremely low-cut stuff. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say. So I know some people consider that production value. But it's really difficult. It's a real challenge when you have somebody who's got a really low-cut thing like this. It may look good in the final picture, but it's tough to get a lavalier microphone on people like that. So fortunately, the people that I was working with had the lowest cut thing was maybe about here. I'm pretty sure everybody's found that sweet spot right there for putting a microphone, right? That's built in. It's like a mic holder. It's perfect. It's wonderful. And so one of the girls was wearing a nice kind of medium cut thing, and she was proportioned in such a way that she had a perfect microphone spot. The other girl was proportioned differently. Okay, it's good. I mean, it's good to have choice, right? Good to have variety. And she also happened to be wearing a T-shirt, which is really my nemesis. I don't like T-shirts, and particularly sheer T-shirts, because I like to mount, if I can, I'd like to put the microphone on the clothing, if I can. It's just less intrusive to the talent, and remind me to talk about why I say that. So she was wearing a fairly sheer T-shirt. That was her wardrobe. So I needed to put the microphone on her skin. Now, as Luke was saying, I'd asked about why would I carry alcohol other than it's been a really bad day. Because most everybody who's taking a shower in the morning is using some kind of soap that has moisturizer in it. Women in particular, but men are getting into manscaping and getting a lot better groomed these days. Put on moisturizing products and things like that. So even if you try to put a microphone on someone with some kind of body tape, I use moleskin or something called Millipore, which is a porous cotton medical tape. But you try to put that on the skin, if there are oils or any kind of moisturizers, it's just going to pull right off. So I carry those little packets of alcohol things, little swabs, right? And then I'll usually ask the person if they're wearing any moisturizer, and they'll say no. I say, well, I think I'm just going to clean this off anyway. And once you do that, your tape is going to stick, your mic is going to stick a whole lot better. I guarantee it. I mentioned talking to the talent and ahead of time. One of the things that I think is really overlooked in production sound is how you deal with the talent. And in particular, I was alluding to having to mic up some young women. Well, depending on how I approach that, I can either make them comfortable with me, or I can make them cringe, because here comes the creepy sound guy every time I go over to check the microphone. Well, our shoots are about our talent, usually. And if we get a good performance, we're telling the story, right? James taught me that. It's all about telling the story. If we get a good performance, we have a good chance of getting a good product, a good story. Without the talent, if they're creeped out, if they're uncomfortable, it's going to come through in the performance. In particular, if there are issues, and as a sound person, I have to go back and adjust microphones. We've all done that, right? How many people have put a microphone on once and it was perfect for the whole day? Wow. Would you? I was going to give you the microphone because I want to learn. As Mike alluded, I'm pretty meticulous, so I'm listening. I listen probably a little louder than I should, but I'm listening for those little hints that the microphone's starting to come loose, the scrapes, the this, the that, and that kind of stuff, because I want to hear them in production. I want to fix it in production. I don't want to fix it in post. But anyway, yeah, I do spend a lot of time going back and forth with the talent, checking mics, stuff like that. So the very first thing that I do when I show up, when I see the talent, is I go in and I introduce myself. And I don't bring my gear, I don't bring my kit. I go in and I introduce myself. I say, hey, I'm Robert. I'll be your sound man for the day. And I just wanted to stop by and say hi and see what you're wearing, and I'll be back in a little while to get microphones on you. You'd be surprised how much it's a people skill, how much that little people skill will improve your productions. Because now you've built trust with the person that you have to have the rapport with, right? And it really, really helps, and particularly for sound guys, but for directors, for anybody, that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. Am I getting the hook? Yeah. Okay. I don't know how much time we have. So anyway, I had mentioned that I really wanted you guys to be able to ask any questions about location sound. I think we're getting close to time here. Is there anybody that's like run into something that really puzzled them, or it's been a nemesis throughout their shooting careers? Or go ahead.
Tight turtleneck sweaters, and you have to go loud.
Yeah. Male or female? Okay. That's going to probably be an alcohol swab and on the skin. There's going to be, I mentioned Millipore. Have you ever seen it? It's a little white tape. It's actually a cloth tape. It has a really good adhesive on it, but it has little porous holes in it. You can actually tape over a COS 11 mic. Tape it flat, completely against the skin, so it's not going to bulge out and show. Now, with turtlenecks, I've also put, depending if they're folded over, I've also threaded a mic in this way here. Depends on how tight it is up there. I've actually threaded a mic inside the curled part here, the folded up part of a t-shirt before sometimes. It depends on the shirt. Something to be aware of when you're putting that microphone on, at least half of the noise problems that I've had with setting microphones, lavalier microphones on talent, come from the cable, not from the mic. A lot can come from the mic, but one of the biggest culprits is the cable. Why? How many people have ever done the tin cans with a string telephone? It's the same thing. When the string is tight, you can talk, right? The sound goes on the string. When the string is loose, you don't hear, right? It's the same thing with a lavalier. This one little tip will probably help you greatly. Tape down the mic wherever it's going to be. Leave yourself a little slack. Some people even put a little loop. And there are all kinds of fancy ways of doing that. I've seen people use those little eyeglass rubber bands for holding the loop or something like that. But if you don't have that, just leave a little slack and then tape it again so that the person can move. And they can tuck in their shirt and they don't pull the lavalier cord tight. Because it's the tight cord, you work diligently to get that microphone carefully placed in a quiet place up here, then the cord goes tight, they tuck in their pants, and every time they move, the shirt goes on the cable, goes right up the cable into the mic. Okay? Yes, sir. Is that Frank?
The mic on skin. I've had problems where I'm picking up heartbeats.
I've had that too.
Where
Well, I have had that happen. I was doing the last time I remember I was shooting a feature, and we had the actress, and she was fine up until the point they called action. And as soon as they called action, I heard bum, 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 bum. In that case, it's a female actor. I didn't worry about it too much because it's such a low frequency. It was below the level of what I was going to be able to use for a female. But if you get it up off the skin a little bit, I mentioned moleskin. If you tape it right to the skin, you're going to get that. Inverse square rule, just get it, a couple of millimeters above the skin, and then you're not going to have the direct connection. Does everybody know what moleskin is? It's that little brown tape. It's great stuff. It sticks really well. Yes, sir.
What about a mic, the mic pack with a woman who's wearing a dress? There's nowhere to put it.
Go down to your, I was going to say Rexall, but that dates me. Go down to your Rite Aid or whatever that is, and go through their foot care department and get those little ankle braces and those wrist braces, and I carry a whole bunch of them. They're little Velcro closures. You can put them on your ankle. You can put them on your thigh. I was shooting a feature quite a few years ago. There was a woman wearing this. Might as well have just been wet tissue paper because there was nothing to this dress. There was nowhere to put a microphone, a pack. You couldn't put it around here because it was tight enough because you could use a waist belt. But I was able to put one of those ankle bands with the Velcro on her thigh underneath the dress and put it up underneath there. And we were able to get that. But also, don't overlook the fact that you can move that pack too. It doesn't have to stay. Look at what the shot is, look at what the blocking is. The commercial I shot the other day, same issue. They're all this way. I had the pack in here, but then they do a turn and they run off this way, quarter to the camera. I move the pack over there. Problem solved. So just look at the blocking. Sometimes that can help. I know I'm probably running out of time, but yes, sir.
Clothes affecting the mic?
Yeah, clothes. No nylon. Someone shows up with a crinkly nylon shirt and corduroys, and you got a one-man band.
I mean, once it's taped on your skin.
Oh, once it's taped on your skin. Yeah. Do you know what a makeup sponge is? Okay, I carry makeup sponges, and you can cut little bits of them, and actually, if you have that problem, you can help the clothing stay out. Now, men and women usually, all of us, we have a little bit of a natural indentation right in here, and that's where I would usually go, like that. Another thing to keep in your arsenal in terms of that is, do you know what toupee tape is? Has anybody ever seen toupee tape? In the film industry, they call it snot tape because it's this really, really super thin, double sticky tape. It's almost invisible, but you use it to secure clothing. A lot of the problem is not that the clothes are there, it's that they're moving. So if you have something, the classic is somebody wants this, but you've got a microphone here. Even though this isn't even going over the top of the microphone, it's rubbing like that and you're hearing it. So you get the double-sided toupee tape, you put it here and here. You tack this down in the right way. It looks natural. It looks like it's going to fall. It falls naturally, but it won't fall open and it won't move back and forth and rub. So lock down the clothing. If you can't find toupee tape, double up some gaff tape.
Okay, let's put a hold on the questions until the end, and we'll do this little last question and answer. We're going to do drawings.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to do 2 more drawings. Again, the Learning Pro Tools. This is, you can take your pick, Learning Pro Tools or Sonar XR X2 Producer. Well, that's awesome. Here's both tickets. So somebody has the other side of that, and they have 2 tickets that have the same number. So good luck with that. 696329. Got a winner. Take your pick.
Okay, I have a Mac, so which one am I?
This is probably more Mac based.
Okay,
These two are PC.
Just do a PC.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then 696360. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sheldon. That was nice of you. 696372. All right. Six nine six 368. Yay.
Windows things, right?
Yes.
I'm on Mac, so that's all right.
Just give them to the Windows people. If there are.
You're gonna make us embarrass ourselves?
Who has a PC?
Yeah,
Screw you. We have one more drawing at the end of the evening. And can you please tell us what that drawing is?
Infinite Skills, the people that make the DVDs that are floating around, the Logic and the Pro Tools, they're a competitor of lynda.com. And they have training for not just Logic and Pro Tools, but Photoshop and Premiere and right? Everything. So what I have at the end of the night is a year's subscription to their entire library.
So, in addition to being talented, he's generous. Our next speaker is Joe Godfrey, who will be talking about post-production sound. Joe is a talented composer, but he comes from the real world. Yes, you have a lot of experience in this business, outside of composing, right?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about him is that he works here teaching his skills, sharing his skills with his students and making a difference. So, thank you very much for coming, and
Yeah.
knock us dead.
I didn't even have to come. I was already here. So, thank you for coming. So, I'm going to talk about post-production sound, and I want to start with a production horror story, a post-production horror story. So, 1975, I'm working on United Airlines commercials. Yes, I'm that old, and but I was very young. I just started in the business, and Burgess Meredith was the voiceover for United Airlines in that year. And Burgess, when he did his voiceovers, did his own slate numbers. So he would go, this is take one, and then he'd say it, and this is take two, and then he'd say, this is take three, and then, so he finishes all this stuff, and in those days, United wanted to tag every commercial with Burgess saying, this week you can fly from Seattle to Portland for only $19.95 or whatever it costs. You know, I'm doing a really horrible Burgess Meredith, but so he's very efficient, and he just rips right through these things, and off he goes, right? And he calls United and says, I'm done. Can I get on an earlier flight? Yeah, we have one leaving. So off to O'Hare. This is all in Chicago. And off to O'Hare he goes. And he's gone for 15 minutes, and the phone rings, and the producer picks up the phone, and she says, well, yeah, but he's gone already. And so she hangs up the phone, and she says, they just lowered all their fares. All the numbers we just recorded are all wrong, right? Now, this is 1975. We haven't invented Pro Tools yet, right? There's no digital, easy way to do this. So the genius of the studio where I was working was Mike King, who was the best editor I ever met. And he's working on tape. So the first thing he does is copy the tape, make a clone of it. The next thing he does is get out a razor blade, and he starts cutting. And he took the slate numbers, because he'd turn to her and say, what's the new number? 3875. Okay, I got a 38 here, I got a 7 here, and a 5 here, right? And he put together all the new fare numbers. By the time Burgess landed in L.A., which he would have hopped on a plane and come back, right? By the time he landed in L.A., we had that whole gig solved, right? So that's the best editing gig I ever saw, you know? And that's 39 years ago, and I haven't seen anything to beat it yet. So, all right, so let's see what we can do in post-production sound that helps you do better work. I know when I wrote the little blurb to draw people to this meeting, you know, audio is one of those things that sort of scares people. Mike's admitted, you know, it's shot framing and lighting and stuff that scares me. You know, audio sometimes scares people. And Robert did a great job of helping you get good sound on the set. Obviously, that's what we all want. We want to arrive in post-production with nothing in step one, right? Nothing's broken. It's all great. Let's just make it terrific now. Doesn't always happen. So we start with, we fix what's broken. Second step is take out what doesn't belong. Third step is add what's missing. Fourth step is shape and focus, right? I'm trying to use video editor terms a little bit, you know? And then step 5 is standards and conventions, right? There are, you know, you can't have lights above 95 or 100. You know, you can't have pure black in video, right? You know the rules. And so there are rules in audio too. So we want to sort of obey them. All right, so for my purposes, dialogue is anybody talking. It isn't two people talking, even though that's a technical definition. Announcer voiceover, on-camera talking head, anybody that's talking. So let's get to levels. There are, how many people have showed up in post-production with levels that were too low? Okay. How many showed up with levels that are too high? Okay. How many showed up with audio levels that are all over the place? Okay. Guilty, 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 guilty. All right. So too low is a fairly easy problem to solve. You just want to monitor it. Jump in if there's anything you disagree with here, but you want to monitor it. You know, in a professional is obviously the best way to do that. But have somebody on the cans listening to the sound you're printing. You can, like Tom is over there, you can sort of trust your ears, but the meters are great. Use the meters. They really don't lie much, you know. And if you're just tickling the meter at the very bottom, you know, let's say you have 10 bars, and if you're just moving the first 2 bars, that's too low. And conversely, if every meter is lit at every turn of a word, it's too hot. You're printing a signal that eventually will sound like this, right? So there is a good place somewhere here where we're getting good quality sound, printing a good level. This is too low. This is too hot. And some, you know, there's a really good spot in the middle. Your ear will tell you. The meters will confirm it. And, you know, maybe it's a question of you learning your, sorry, did I just kill you? It's you learning your equipment. You had to kind of probably learn your camera and your monitor setup and learn, you know, as Mike said, something about colors, right? The colors in one room and so forth. So if your audio levels are all over the place, there's a feature in all the editing programs that will let you normalize it. Final Cut 7 used to have a list of things. Tom sent me a list of all the settings that he used to use to get this really cool sound. And now in 10, they've sort of dumbed it down so much that there's that little inspector window over there and it says, should I fix this or should I leave it alone, right? But it doesn't let you like dig in and go, well, I'm going to set the threshold for this and I want to da-da-da-da. I mean, you kind of, it's, you sort of trust Final Cut to take a look at it and say, well, this is what's wrong. I'll go ahead and fix it, right? Have you encountered that? Most of the time it's really good and it gets it right, you know, but it's sort of a different way of doing it. We sort of don't have that in Pro Tools. We can't say, Fix this, I'm going to have lunch and I'll be back in a half hour, I mean, it's still a very manual shifting kind of thing. So, but normalize is a way to take an audio level. I should probably do this not with my hands, but we'll just talk about it now and then come back. It's a way to take something that's not living up to its potential, hit the button, and then all of a sudden it's living up to its potential. It's as loud as it should be. The loudest thing in the file is now as loud as it should be. Did it bring up all the background sound too? Yeah, it did. It did do that. But at least they're not all over the place now. Your loudest person isn't any louder than your softest person. They're all approximately the same at their loudest level. Yeah.
In regards to that, in order, if you've got multiple people talking, one is really loud, one is really soft, and they're in the same track, aren't you going to have to split that audio in order for the soft person to be normalized to the same tone as the other one?
Yes, we are. Yeah, I'm talking about, if you normalize the entire file, you're going to get the loudest person as loud as they should be.
You'll still have the same relative.
The disparity. Yeah, right. Yeah, you will have to snip them apart. You're kind of jumping ahead there, but no, that's all right. But come on. That's weird. So that's what I did here. There's one track of people speaking, top to bottom. If I had normalized that, right, that's the little track up here, then this loudest guy over here would have been as loud as he could be, but all these other people wouldn't, they wouldn't have reached their potential, they would have reached his potential. Does that make sense? So I did snip them into pieces. So we'll get back to this in a little while. All right, so let's go back to here. So we're fixing what's broken. The number one thing is levels. Okay, good to go? Second thing, mismatched room tone, right? One thing you can do, and I've done it with that, and we'll take a look at that example in a little bit, is put them in a common space. If you have somebody that was recorded in that room and somebody who's recorded in this other room, they have nothing in common, give them something in common. Send them to a reverb, not a lot, just a little, almost like a drop shadow, that puts them in a common space. And now it's not so mismatched. And so we'll hear that example of that. Or, my favorite thing, if you cut from person A to person B, and that mismatched room tone is bothering you, do a musical interlude there. Because a musical interlude is like the sherbet between the courses, right? It refreshes your ear, and just like a jump cut, you're masking the jump cut with B-roll. Do the same thing with audio, right? Just jump to a little sound effect or something that distracts you from that room tone. Now you've forgotten about it. Now you're into the new room tone and you'll accept it. Make sense? Okay. Unwanted noise comes in two flavors, predictable and random. That projector is making a very predictable unwanted noise. And we can find a filter that says, yeah, he's at this frequency with this overtone, and bam, click and make it go away. We used to have to sample the room tone and then bring it in and maybe throw it out of phase and do all kinds of heroics. It's pretty easy now, I think, to hit that button in Final Cut, that's the program I know the best, and say, find the nasty stuff and take it out. And I find it, I don't know, any stories there, verification, disagree? It's pretty handy for, yeah. It sure does, yeah. You got to sort of be willing to live with that. But I think generally you are willing to live with it. Now, it's not exactly a light switch. Now, in Final Cut, a lot of times it is, but sometimes they give you the slider, right? Sometimes it's all or nothing, but sometimes it's a varying amount. So you want to just like slide that slider so it's not taking out everything until your voice person, it's like, okay, I don't hear the projector now, and my voice person sounds okay, that's the setting, right? Yeah, but if it's starting to make your voice person sound weird, you know, and you're not hearing sibilance anymore, and yeah. But those frequencies tend to be down in the low range, right? They're not going to eat your sibilance as much. They're going to eat the depth of the voice, but they're also not in a real wide frequency band. They're sort of in the 2 to 270 maybe range, and if once you get rid of that, you'll keep your voice. And you know, it's a trade-off, right? Would you rather listen to the projector, or we all want the awesome voiceover sound, but I'd rather have the less awesome voiceover sound and get rid of the projector if I can. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do that. So Walla and crowd noise, right? That is something that Final Cut, I just did one of those last week. Did a really good job of analyzing the crowd noise and making it go away. So, and then there's the random stuff, right? Sirens, helicopters, traffic, waterfalls. Waterfall is maybe a little predictable. It's going to be in the same frequency range pretty much, you know. Sirens are nasty. Now, Adobe Audition, Eric's brought in the guy from Adobe, has this spectral editing thing where you can run it through there and it'll flag the siren, and you can kind of go, I mean, the example they use on their training, and I would point you to that if this is a problem that you deal with a lot. Spectral editing is kind of a good way to get rid of stuff like that. In a concert, a cell phone goes off, right? It's really distracting, but the cell phone has a very predictable frequency, and it's really high, and it's, you know, the only thing up there with it is the piccolo, and he's not playing right now. So we can spot the cell phone in the audio waveform and like draw a line around it and get rid of it. So we can't do that in Pro Tools yet. I'm not sure we'll ever be able to do it in Pro Tools. But RX is great. Yep. Isotope is a company in Boston that makes plugins for audio, just like Natris and all the ones we know in the editing programs. And Isotope is RX, like prescription RX, is a great plugin for doing that. So I don't do that much of that work, so I don't have it, but we teach it, and yeah, it's a great program. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good workflow question. I would export the. It's out of sync? Ah. If you export the whole audio track, top to bottom, and you bring back the whole audio track, top to bottom, and you start it at 010000, it shouldn't go out of sync. Now, if you take a snippet at 4 minutes, 27 seconds, 31 frames, or whatever, well, there's no 31 frames, is there? If you take just some random SMPTE code and throw it out there, then you are going to have to manually sync it again, you know. But you can, in Final Cut 10, you can switch to the position tool, right, letter P, and then you can put it anywhere you want.
Right, I know you can move it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't do that. I'm a control freak, I guess. Yeah, I gotta. Yeah, and the way you listen, the way I like to do that, I mean, there's lots of ways to do this, but the way I like to do it is I put one thing on the left speaker and one thing on the right speaker. Then I know what I'm listening to, right? Put the old guy over here, the new guy over here, that guy's ahead of that guy, tap, tap, tap. Now this guy's ahead of that guy, tap, tap, perfect. Yeah, and then mute the one that you fixed.
Because the other thing I noticed was the soundtrack is similar in its look,
Right.
but it's not exactly the same.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, is it better?
Oh, it sounds better. but
Yeah.
I'm saying when you're trying to find the high points or something to try to line up,
Oh, I see.
some of it gets a little more smoothed out.
Well, that could be the way you're exporting out of Audition, too.
Okay.
You know, which I think we want to talk about. So, Yeah, we covered a lot of this. Plosives, lip smacks. There's Adobe's spectral editing. So that's what I would call an incident, right? Not a ongoing thing like the projector. So I don't know. Let's stop me talking now and for a second and talk about. I was trying to find in my movies. Yeah, I need to talk about that little pop-up. We're going to see that pop-up because I'm running Keynote and something else, I guess, and Pro Tools at the same time. And Pro Tools 11, this is the part where I diss Pro Tools, okay? Just in case we want to snip this out later. Pro Tools 11 was designed in 64-bit architecture to do better memory management, to not have memory problems. I see much more memory issues in Pro Tools 11 than I ever saw in Pro Tools 8, 9, or 10. So I don't know what they did, but my computer works crummy now with Pro Tools, especially when I'm doing video. And this isn't highfalutin video either. This isn't like, Adobe, Apple ProRes codec. This is just some dumb MPEG. So that I'm really disappointed in Pro Tools 11. It was supposed to fix all the problems, and for me, I just got more problems. So your mileage may vary. All right, let's listen to this thing, and then in your listening, let's look at this as a what's wrong with this picture. Help me figure out what's wrong with this thing. If it'll play at all. Yeah. I think I just had some. Yeah, there we go. See?
At least 25% of all landing accidents can be attributed to a pilot's loss of control during a crosswind landing, or more precisely, the pilot's inability to manage the aircraft correctly during a crosswind. So it's no wonder that new or inexperienced pilots, or even pilots who haven't flown in windy conditions in a while, are intimidated by strong crosswinds when trying to land. Pilots are taught the proper way to land in a crosswind during their primary training and are required to demonstrate the technique to pass their check ride. Some are taught to crab the airplane down final and kick it over before touchdown, and some are taught to side slip it all the way down. Both methods are correct. However, at some point they will have to cross-control the aircraft to land on the upwind wheel first, and many pilots can be timid about this maneuver. And rightly so. In training, pilots are taught that cross-controlling is bad, but that is only half the truth.
The fear is real, yes, because the fear is real if you are not exposed to it early on.
Probably the biggest reason why people struggle with crosswind landings is they feel uncomfortable just being uncoordinated. We spend so much time telling people not to fly uncoordinated because you could stall and spin, especially at low air speeds. And
All right, so it's not a flying lesson, so we'll just stop there. What do you hear? Yeah, what do you hear? That's. Yeah, right. So she's got a ringy sound. The voiceover guy's got this awesome FM radio sound, and the guy in the middle is kind of in the middle. So we'll ignore, I know you're all thinking, well, and it's a purple background, and let's forget shot framing and editing. Okay, I know your minds all went there, but let's concentrate on the audio. So, yeah, the breaths and the voiceover guy are so distracting. I mean, you just need to go through and snip them out, right? So we go in, and we just find out where they are. Move this out of the way.
At least 25% of all landing accidents can be attributed to a pilot's
So I see
loss
the
of
first one
control
already.
during a crosswind landing.
Right? That little guy right there. See him? Yeah. So we do that. We we make a region in Pro Tools, just Command E is how you edit, Command M is how you mute. Now we're going to have a little space here.
Attributed to a pilot's loss of control during a crosswind landing. Or more precisely,
But it's just, you know, you just got to get rid of those, right?
I have a
You can-
hotkey on mine,
Yeah,
and I just, for breaths.
right.
Highlight B, highlight B, highlight B.
Now, at the very least, you got to agree that we at least dip them down. Okay, if you don't want to snip them out completely, go in, you know, keyframe, 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 pull the volume down, I don't know, 15 dB or something, and just let them take a sort of a natural breath. Now, you know, it's the tension of the breath. it's that's annoying. You know, if he did a, you know, kind of a more natural breath, you'd almost accept it. But it's that sort of panicky breath that, you know, and it's just, I think it's just poor editing. So, yeah. I do. Yeah, that's the ideal thing, is to is
Reducing the breath so that you don't lose it completely, so it sounds like a natural breath.
yeah.
And that's just your own artistic, when you listen back to it, you say, okay, that sounded good.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. It is agreed. You know, if you take out the breath completely and there's no music behind it or no nat sound or something, then yeah, you will feel it. So you know, you could just keep room tone running down below and then snip it where you need it, and in it goes. So James made a good point about the talent, right? A good talent will not right, take the breath and leap right in. A good talent will take the breath, let you drive a truck through there, and then start talking, you know, and it's much easier to snip them out, you know, and I've done a zillion of those, and I guess we all have, so that's the ideal thing. Or the best talent will take the breath in a more natural way and then, you know, deliver the line. The other guy, not the lady, if we look at his pieces, it's a little hard to see here, but he's got a real common problem.
trolling is bad, but that is only half the truth.
This guy.
The fear is real, yes, because the fear is real if you were not exposed to it early on.
Probably the biggest
Exposed to it early on. He's got the opposite problem where he's not giving a consistent delivery. And it's like in every single clip. At the end of the sentence, he just kind of gives up. You know, and he mumbles a little and his level drops off. And that's got to make you crazy when that happens. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. So it's best handled on the set. What we can do here is keep pushing the volume up at the end of the sentences, but again, now we're introducing background noise and so forth. He's on camera. It's a tough one, right? If you see him go, and you don't hear that, I think if it's on camera, it's kind of different rules. If it's voiceover, yeah, I would for sure. But you know, when they're talking on camera, you're kind of stuck with it. So here's what I did. I just sort of thought, like, okay, if I got this job, you know, trying to fix these guys, what would I do? So I started by putting them in the common space. And I think they're already in there. They're all going to an iteration of a reverb. This is a little blurry, so I'm sorry for that. But this is an iteration of a reverb in waves, I guess. And so they're all arriving in this common room by varying levels. The levels are, this guy's got no, that's the voiceover guy. And the next guy, him, I'm calling him, has that much. And her has about the same. So the blue ones are grayed out for the moment, and that's, so if we just listen to, can we listen to that and see if, so the voiceover guy's muted for the moment. And yeah, we're not going to hear that until we solo that guy. So, all right. So
Trolling is bad, but that is only half the truth.
The fear is real, yes, because the fear is real if you are not exposed to it early on.
Probably the biggest reason why people struggle with crosswind landing.
So let me mute the reverb, the common space, and see if
Trolling
we
is
can tell the difference.
bad, but that is only half the truth.
The fear is real, yes, because the fear is real if you are not exposed to it early on.
Probably the biggest reason why people struggle with crosswind landings is they feel uncomfortable.
So I'll put you on the spot a little bit. If you heard those two people, or maybe chances are they're recording different days, different times, maybe different sound people, different production teams, you know, but if you heard those two on the same day, would you, so what could we do in terms of mic placement to give them a more consistent pattern? Well, I don't know. Maybe they're not. In production, on the set.
Well, I carry furniture blankets with me, and I either bring C-stands or ask somebody for a C-stand,
Mm-hmm.
and I hang a furniture blanket on either side as close as I can.
Yeah.
Not on camera. Put them up so that if we have seated or standing talent. Now I cut down the reflections,
Great.
and that deadens the recording.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but the more echoes you can get out in production that way,
Yeah.
not expensive.
Yeah. That's a great solution. So it looks like we're laved on both of these people. And install more RAM. That's Pro Tools' answer to everything. Dude, it's not our fault. Go buy more memory. So the other thing, we talked about levels already. Levels are when you're working with more than one track, you want to look at a master fader. This master fader would normally be up at 0, but I brought it down because of the levels of this into the speaker here. So when you're combining things in audio, you always want to look at the master level that you're sending out. And this is how I would try and equalize the level between that person and that person. So that when they're all talking, I need I used to have hair before I started working with Pro Tools. Seriously? No, I don't want to comment. Thank you. Wow.
So, in training, pilots are taught that cross-controlling
watching
is
the
bad,
master.
but that is only
He
half
gives
the
up.
truth.
The fear is
The
real.
new guy comes in
Yes,
right there.
because the fear is real if you are
When
not
he gives up,
exposed to it early on.
Probably the biggest
She
reason
starts right
why
there.
people struggle with crosswind landings is they feel uncomfortable just being.
stop. You can do that with your ear, but the meter will tell you perfectly every time. You know, figure out what the level is when one person stops and start the next person at that level. Now, where they go from there, that's a different problem, right? Whether you need to make them louder as they talk or softer as they talk, but try and equalize the jump from this person to that person. Hmm? Yeah.
Without compression and without going in and I spot reduce things, is there something that will easily, without compressing, keeping the file as raw can be, as far as the producer knows, without having to go in and
I think what you want to do is compress on the way in. Because when you're compressing the file,
Possible, I just have to make sure I'm not.
a little bit. I'm not saying like 9-to-1. I'm saying like 3-to-1, you know. Whenever we do a lead vocal on a song, we're compressing a little bit. So now I heard Robert groan, and I think what the reason is, he doesn't want to wind up with a track that he has no control over in post, and I get that, but I also don't want to have a track that's like this in post, right? And if you can help me with that going in, I mean, a lot of the really great voice sessions are just have a tinge of compression in it. So.
I'd say it might be worthwhile as a voiceover person, if you're in that circumstance, to call your host and say how would you like it, or provide it both
Yeah.
compressed and uncompressed.
True.
So you have a choice.
So along that same line, a lot of times spikes in the voice track recording can be minimized just by a little shift in mic placement.
Yeah. Right. Good. So syncing, you can sync at the head, you can sync at the tail. Larry Jordan likes to sync both. You know, he likes to put a 2-pop in the front and a 2-pop at the end. So then there's auto sync, which Final Cut 10 has, which does a pretty amazing job. If you remember how we used to have to do multi-camera clips and, you know, define and all that, and so it's pretty great. Sample rates. Let's talk about this. It's the only math I'm going to do, but along comes this guy named Nyquist when we moved from tape and razor blades and Burgess Meredith to recording digitally. And the reason we need sample rates in the 40K area, and there's two of them we use, 44.1 and 48. And we need that in order to get all the way up to 22,000, which is about where we stop hearing stuff. And so that's the convention, and that's the Nyquist theorem, is why do we use these crazy sample rates? You have to have a sample rate that's double the highest frequency you want to hear. The highest frequency you can hear is 22. Therefore, we do sample rates in the 48K. 44.1 and 48K. The music people use 44.1, and you, because you're video people, use 48. Why? Same reason you speak French when you go to Paris. You know, it's just because that's what you do there. And so I would not use a sample rate. Yeah, right. So it's a convention, right? More than a rule. It's just the way. Oh, look at good old Pro Tools. It's really at me tonight. I wanted to show you what happens. How will you recognize? Don't save. So what I did is I imported this 48K thing. I'm going to mute this guy for a moment. And this is the movie we just saw. Okay.
Pilots are taught
There's
the
our
proper
breathing.
way to land in a crosswind during their primary training and are required to demonstrate the technique to pass their check ride. And
Trying
many
to get to
pilots
the
can be
on-camera
timid
talent.
about this, but that is
The fear is real if you are not exposed to it early on.
Okay.
Probably the biggest reason.
That's a 48K audio file that goes with that movie. It came from that movie. It's synced to that movie. On purpose, I imported it at 44.1K just to show you what can happen when somebody that you're working with sends you a file at the wrong sample rate. Listen to the pitch of the music. The pitch of the music has changed. The tempo of the music has changed. And it's out of
taught
sync.
to side slip it all the way down.
And so
Both methods are correct. However, at some point, they will have to cross-control the aircraft to land.
We know because we know what it sounded like 30 seconds ago, but you won't know when someone sends you this. You'll go, well, that guy's got a really deep voice, you know. Sorry, folks, we're closed, right?
Taught to side slip it all the way down. Both methods are correct. However, at some point,
And you might think, geez, really? Did they coach him to talk like that? So, but you won't know. How did it happen? we're playing back at the wrong sample rate. This is a 44.1K file, playing along, minding its own business, in sync with a movie that it's out of sync with. So how will you know? Well, you'll normally be working at 48, and the music will sort of sound a little, and the voiceover will sort of be a little.
Voiceover talent sends you a file, because I always capture in 44.1, unless somebody absolutely insists, and then I have to switch my sound card, and it's a big pain in the butt. So if somebody
Oh boy,
sends,
can of worms.
if I send somebody a 44.1 file,
Yeah.
what do they do so that it doesn't sound like that?
Yeah, they'll convert it on the way in. Most editing programs will say this is a problem. Should I fix it? And it will SRC it, sample rate convert it, and that's kind of a seamless thing, I guess. But if you said no, or if you just didn't know and you threw it in there, then
We've had that happen when you play back something on your own equipment where it sounds raw.
yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't sound so bad. It's not like 33 on the 78. It's not so bad that you just go. I mean, you might not even know. You might think, gee, I don't like this music. It's too slow. And this guy with his voice, I mean, if you didn't hear the guy in the first place, you might not have a good point of reference. So, well, working in the world of video, I would recommend let's just all agree, just like the orchestra tunes to 440 at the beginning of the concert, right? Let's all agree we're going to work in 48 and be done with it. I love that the Zoom and some of the new gadgetry will sample at these awesome sample rates, but you're never going to hear any higher than 22. If you record at 386K sample rate, you're just capturing more data, but you're not improving the quality of it. Except the theory is that you're getting better quality at the frequencies you can hear. But there's been a lot of ink written about that, and I'm not even sure it's worth it, for a typical project. If you're doing the new Bjork record, hell yeah, I would use the best sample rate I could use. But for the kind of video that we're doing, I'm not sure that it's worth tripling the file size of everything you record to get that marginal little better quality. Yeah. Yeah. I will, and then you can add what you want. We're moving from 16 to 24, and that I would encourage. You probably want to roll 24? Yeah. I will evangelize. We used to live in a world of 16-bit. It's the way we measure dynamics. If frequencies are measured in sample rates, right? If I cut the sample rate, what happens? The highest frequency I can hear goes down. So if I record at 22K, I can hear 11. If I record at 11, I can hear 5.5, right? And pretty soon, that's going to start to eat into your sound. You're going to go, ooh, that sounds like it's coming out of my cell phone, right? All the high frequencies will go away. Interestingly enough, the bottom doesn't change. Rumbles, you can do low sample rates on. That's how we get little bitty games on our phones. They cut the sample rate when they can. So, but anyway, back to bit depth. Bit depth is how we measure dynamics, the louds versus the softs. And in a voice, if we have better resolution, if we have 24 ways of measuring it, we're going to get higher quality than if we have 16. So I would urge you to use 4824 whenever you record audio in your projects. And as you deal back with, as you do archive projects that were done in the 90s and, maybe 2000, you're going to encounter 4816. But, from now on, let's sort of make it 4824, I think. Well, it should have 24 between those two. It should have 24. That's a very common. Okay. Well, we're all moving to the cloud anyway, right? Yeah. So. Okay. 9? Really? Okay. Well, I know people that are running Pro Tools like 5, I think, and this for the same reason. It's like, you know what? It does everything I need it to do. Why change? And I don't know. If I weren't working at a school where all the kids want yesterday's version, I might feel that way too. If you're doing dialogue replacement, looping, we call it, use a mic that's designed for it. Don't use your lavalier to do it. Don't use your SM57 to do it. Use, those are the two that are sort of industry common, I think. If you Google for best mic for ADR, you'll get somebody's. Yes. Right. Well, there is that argument. That's the best match. Yeah, well, I don't know. Generally, when we're doing ADR, we've got better control over everything, and I would just aim for a higher quality. And then I'm willing to manipulate that really high quality sound to get it to match, You don't want it to sound better, you want it to sound the same. Yeah, I get it, but okay.
Wouldn't there be a different crew working on the ADR if it was really?
You'd think. Yeah, you'd think. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. And then use the bad track for timing, right? Feed that into the talent's ears. So, swipe comping. I don't have time to show you this, but there is a thing in Logic where you record it, you record it, you record it, you record it. Now you have 4 takes. They're all lined up in time against the picture, and you grab this much of this one, this much of that one, that much of that one, that much of that one, and it automatically composites your selections into a master take. That is the coolest, because we do it with guitar solos, lead vocals, drum fills, anything that musicians screw up. That's what we do it with, which is everything, right? So that's called swipe comping. We kind of have it in Pro Tools, but it's not as dandy as it is in Logic. Sorry. So GarageBand and Logic. Did you know that there's music libraries in GarageBand? Okay. You click there's 3 things, and you click sound effects, and then there's a thing called jingles, and there's, 195 really nice music beds that you can drop into your projects. Don't have to ask anybody, tell anybody. You can chop them up, At Media Pro Camp, I think we'll take some library music and we'll chop it up, because library music always peaks at the wrong place. It fades out at the wrong place, right? And so let's do some tricks at Media Pro Camp for how to get library music to behave in your project. We'll select it, we'll shorten it, we'll lengthen it, we'll crossfade it, because you want to change a texture when the person finishes this paragraph and goes into that paragraph. How can you do that? So we'll do some music there. If you're doing original music with a composer, and I hope you are, you can put in a temp score. That usually helps the composer. Find something in your music library that's like in the direction of where you want to go. You can't, and you already know this, you can't say, here's the score from E.T., give me note for note what I put in here. I mean, the composer can't give you that. And the composer also can't give you the very thing that you love about the temp score, right? That it goes da-da-da-da. I mean, well, that I can give you, because that's Beethoven and that's public domain. But the thing you love about the dan 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 dan, if you give me that and I give you back, other notes that go da da da, you'll go, well, that's not like the original. Yeah, I know. We'd all go to jail if I give you the original. So we don't want that. So the composer has to have some flexibility, right? You can, yeah. Yeah. Be really careful when having your client look at stuff with a temp score. Oh, perfect. Inevitably, they will fall in love with that stupid temp score. Demo love. Yeah. It's a real thing. Demo love. I've seen it.
I've even done it as an editor, fall in love with my own
Yeah.
score. You gotta go, no, go away, let this guy do
Mark knows. Mark has stories. Yeah. Yeah, where you put something in and then, you temp in U2 and the client falls in love with it, and now we have $1,700 to go re-record this U2 song, so yeah, right. Give your composer academy leader with a 2-pop. That's my advice. We all know what a 2-pop is. A little 1K beep tone that happens at 58 seconds. You want to give them 48K for your audio. $29.97, unless there's some reason to do 30. QuickTime Movie is what we all do in this business. I don't know. Is anybody doing something other than a QuickTime Movie to pass files around to colleagues? No. Okay. It's whatever you agree on, but I think mostly we all agree on that. And then, this is a sore subject, but you can't give the composer the dub and say, okay, you've got 2 weeks to do this. Well, that's a joke. Whoever has 2 weeks, right? You've got 4 days to do this. And then go back on the second day and say, well, we took out this scene and we moved this scene over here. I mean, you have to wait until you get a locked set of reels, right? To give the composer, because it's really easy to take out a scene and tighten that up and move that scene over here. But that throws the composer's work off like crazy, right? Because that used to fall on a downbeat and he did a key change and now it doesn't. And so, you know, it's really frustrating to be working on music that's like always in flux, you know, because new versions are happening. I know that it happens, but we want to minimize it. Or just expect your composer to freak out a little bit if it does. So I think that's what I had. The thing is, there are solutions for all those things we talked about. Fixing what's broken, adding what's missing, you know. I would use, if I were doing post-production on a corporate movie like that AOPA thing, I would use Pro Tools versus any film editing, you know, any Premiere, Final Cut, or anything else. I would take it there. I would even, we were talking about this with somebody earlier about doing dialogue in Logic. Was that Mike? And so like, well, if you love composing in Logic, why not do all your dialogue editing in Logic? Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've done it, and you can do it, and all the tools are there, but that's really kind of more of a Pro Tools gig to me, I think, you know? To any of the dialogue and the sound effects, I kind of like to get the production stuff done in Pro Tools, and then when it's time to do music, I take it into Logic, and all that production track just sits there at the top. It's my guide. I can see where things happen. I put markers here, 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 and you know. At Media Pro Camp, I'll show you the composing process if somebody wants to see that. When you put in graphics, I'll leave you with this little thing. When you put graphics in, you probably say, well, I need a graphic here and here and here and here. If you took one of those GarageBand tracks or just a loop in GarageBand and threw it in your timeline and did your graphics like here, 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 then the composer will solve for that, you know, be able to see that and go, I need music at this tempo so that all those things hit on downbeats. Because we don't like things that go boom, bam, bam, boom, right? And that are all goofy, like the old Batman tracks, you know, pow, pow, pow. So we want stuff that sort of flows and is rhythmic, and if you build them rhythmically, then the composer will find that tempo and make things flow better. So there's definitely things you can do. Or tell the composer, you know what, I need graphics in this general area. Give me something cool musically that I can flash my graphics on, you know. It's an iterative process, I think. If you're doing music with a composer and you don't listen to anything until the day before you're presenting to the client, shame on you, right? You should be getting feeds from the composer all the way through this process, you know. Get the MIDI mock-up, the demo, get the more finished project. You know, Connie and I did SAIC stuff for years back in the day, and you know, that meeting always had an end date, and the editing always got pushed back and back and back, and it was all, yeah, right, old wounds. So, you know, there was always somebody scrambling at the last minute because of this scene, and this got changed, and so, you know, it's you really, you know, I know you need to do approvals with your clients too, right? You can't just take the thing and show it to them and say, well, there it is. I mean, you need to be getting approvals too, and you know, a good composer will take the criticism and build it back into the track, and you know, not just say, well, sorry, that's what you're getting. So So I think we'll follow up here in Pro Camp. There's a couple other things we can talk about, but thanks for listening.
If there's still interest, hi, look, it's a microphone. The meeting is probably supposed to be over, but if you guys wouldn't mind hanging around and answering questions for a few minutes, would that be okay? I'm sure there's questions. Yes, sir. Fine, we'll do the raffle. This is for. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. I forgot those. Those are going to be the last thing that we're going to give away.
Postcards that I drew, and I'm,
Connie did these wonderful cards. They're awesome.
drew them myself.
And they're beautiful.
Put them into a postcard. They're old microphones, so this was a good meeting for this. Audio Marvin Martian. And then there's a little back for postcards.
And these are available for sale. If you don't win them, you can always buy them. And you have
And $3 goes to charity, a 501c3 charity.
it's awesome.
$15 price, but today only $10.
Awesome. The number is 696-370. There you go.
Can I do two more quick things?
Yes,
Before
sir.
you wrap? We are looking for a photography teacher at the school. I promised Jason, my colleague, that I would ask you guys. I know you're not still photographers really, but you do understand still photography. And if somebody has a master's degree and wants to teach here, come and see me and I'll put you in touch with the right person. So it requires a master's. Sorry for that, but it would be teaching photography. And I think there's a series of classes. It isn't just the intro class. It could be something more advanced than that. And yeah. That's a question for my colleague. Each class is a little different, I think. And then Jeff asked me about compression, audio compression, which is not the same as file compression. We'll cover this at Media Camp, but what compression does is, we talked about it a little bit when we talked about recording. If the loudest thing is here and the softest thing in here is here, it smushes them together. So Jeff was talking about it as a way of getting rid of noise. Well, kind of, it's the worst thing you can do to get rid of noise, right? Because it's making the thing you want softer and the thing you don't want louder, and it's just done the opposite of what you want it to do. So we'll talk about EQ solutions for getting rid of noise at Media Pro Camp. Okay, those are the two things. Thank you.
Media Pro Camp is April 5th, week and a half from now, in the other building, but on this campus, and we are looking forward to it. Again, if you have any projects that you would like to show to other folks and get constructive criticism on, please send them to Jeff. Are you heading that up? The projects. No, it's Joe Castano. Sorry.
An anonymous kind of thing, or is there, you can sit down with a group of people and watch it and take live feedback?
We're still trying to sort that out. One of the possibilities is to do it one-on-one. One of the possibilities is to do it as a group. Some people thought that it would be good to sit around a table and watch other people's work and hear criticism about other people's work so that they could learn how to look at their own work differently. One person I spoke with thought that that would be a living hell to sit in a group of people while somebody knocks your work to the ground. So I think we're going to try and figure out a way to do one or more of those. So basically fit it to what you want to have happen. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Great presentation this evening. You're going to stay around and answer questions? Okay, good. And thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you at Media Pro Camp.